Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
We had a couple of momentous occasions during the last week, so it's been okay.
Okay, so when you say momentous, does that mean positive or negative?
Well, it's all in how you look at it. Kind of like my golf game. I can either look at it that I played the worst golf of my life on Sunday, or I made the best use of my green fee on Sunday.
There you go. That's right. It's all about perspective.
But the momentous occasions that have occurred, one is very good, but the one that it's all in how you look at it, my garbage minivan that I've been poking around in for a number of years now, we rolled her over to 200,000 miles.
Nice.
And when I rolled her over to 200,000 miles, I had my son in the car with me, and he got a little bit of a thrill watching the odometer flip.
Cheered and everything. The more miles you can get out of a vehicle, the better nowadays. You know
Dang
that, right?
straight.
Yeah.
Dang straight. Well, and the average age of the U.S. American car is continually going up. I think it was at 13 or 14 years last year. Somewhere between 13 and 14. And it just keeps going up. And that, man, new cars are ridiculous.
Nowadays especially.
You want to go into debt for the next however many years for a house or a car. Take your pick.
And then take into consideration what cars cost, even a used car costs today versus what it cost 5 years ago.
And
it's unbelievable.
I've got a whole bunch of people who have questioned my judgment because I took our good car, I say good car, which has about 180,000 miles on it. But honestly, it's in really great shape. And I went ahead and had a mechanic do about $3,200, $3,300 worth of work to it. And people are like, what'd you do that for? Why don't you just go buy something else? Dude, I'm a Dave Ramsey guy. I try and pay cash for cars.
Yeah.
I save up, and then I go pay cash for cars.
Yeah.
And when presented with the opportunity or the decision of fixing this vehicle, and then, by the way, the initial estimate was $4,400. I spent $32.
Yeah.
It's either spend that $3,000-$4,000 on that, or because that's the cash I have available, because I've got other big expenses that I have to deal with right now as well.
Right.
Go out in the used car market and take a look at that price point.
Yeah.
$3,000-$4,000.
You're not getting much.
If it runs, you're lucky.
Yeah. And it probably have more miles than what you have on your vehicle already.
Most likely.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and did that. The other cool thing that happened this week, it happened last night. I pushed the button, and my digitally recreated Fox Ridge golf course is now online. And I played the, you could call it the ribbon cutting round in my virtual country club.
Very cool.
Last night. So yeah, I'm really stoked. And my son, who is also a member of that virtual country club, he'll probably play it after school this afternoon, and can't wait to get his reaction.
Very cool.
So the next on the agenda is I have two things on the agenda. One is to see if I can recreate the old Newton Public golf course.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be a lot easier than Fox Ridge ever was, because there was no water out there.
Who knew that Chad would be such a digital creator savvy kind of guy?
There you go. And then after that, I'm going to take the two courses and meld them together into one one 18-hole course.
Okay.
And right now I'm planning to just make that the Kansas Hawkeye Country Club online. So there you go.
And so then, if that's the case, if I'm part of whatever game that you're talking about, I can go play those?
Yeah, 2K23. If
2K23.
If you're a player of 2K23 golf, you can do it tonight if you want. Lance, if you want to come over to my house to do it, you can.
To play.
You just search up KHCC Fox Ridge, and that stands for Kansas Hawkeye Country Club, Fox Ridge.
Okay. And so how do you get the Y2, the game that you were talking about? Is it just a computer game?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got to buy it, or how does that work?
Yeah. It's on PS5, Xbox One, PC. It's just
golf game.
It's a generally marketed golf game.
And then people submit different courses, and then you can play all these courses. So if you want to go be a part of that, because I'll tell you, I used to play golf on. We're kind of nerds, aren't we, Chad? I used to play golf all the time on computer, right? But I just haven't found necessarily a golf game that I like. But I'll go. You know what? I'll go look that up, and I'll see about just do whatever I got to do.
Make a decision as to whether you think it's too expensive or not.
What's that, $20 bill?
I have no idea because my son has a PS. What do they call it? PS Plus membership.
Okay.
And every month, for one reason or another, who knows why, but it's also how we got Farm Simulator in our house. The PS Plus membership gives you a free game.
Yeah.
And that was on the list that he could get for free.
Good call. Good call. Yeah. So if you're an Xboxer, yeah, you can. I pay for the extra little thing where we can get a bunch of different free games and whatnot to play. Then I'll go look that one up and see if I can't indulge just a bit and
see if it's there or
got
not.
Some free time.
And if it's not, and you don't want to spend the cash, just come over to my house. You can check it out.
Do you know what one of my favorite games of all time is? Like SimCity.
Oh, yeah.
They call it City Skylines. And I don't think that people really understand that is a civil engineer game. Like, people do not realize how in depth that you get that, and then expenditures and how much water line costs and all that. I mean, it really is a civil engineer practice playfield, because even though it's not, I'm sure there's a civil engineer laughing away or whatever, but even down to traffic flow to the whole thing, I mean, it's just compounded 1,000 by 1,000 by 10,000.
So if you geek out on SimCity way back in the day, we're talking edition 1,
mm-hmm.
I filled the island, which is not easy, and I had a replacement schedule for power plants that we paid cash for them. And, if you're a longtime player of that game, you'll know that when the power plant comes due, if you don't have cash, you're going to bond it.
Yep.
And when you bond it, you go broke.
Yeah.
Your city will go broke.
Yeah.
Period. That's the way that game works. That's the ticking time bomb.
Only us. Is there anybody right now that's listening to this that's like, I know exactly what Chad and Lance are talking about?
Well, I don't know, but if a couple of my college buddies happen to be listening, they know exactly, because they all saw that city and went, whoa!
Another one I like is Flight Simulator.
So, I love the flight simulators. But
you can fly at a Newton Airport.
Right now, I bounce between, and now that college football season is going to start, then we'll get a new one. I'll get a new one that I'm going to start bouncing around in. But right now I'm bouncing between Farm Simulator and 2K23 Golf.
Very cool.
That's what I'm doing.
Very cool. Well, for those of you...
And the biggest thing that I do in 2K23 Golf is design golf courses. And this is the first one I've actually published for everybody to play. And I did it because Fox Ridge and Newt Public, they're sentimental.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't...
Well, unless you play him virtually, you're never going to play him again.
That's exactly right. Unless you play virtually, you will never play these courses because they're gone.
Yeah.
And they will not return. And that's not... And I want to make this really, really clear. That is not a knock on Sand Creek Station.
Yeah.
Sand Creek Station is a great golf course. It has great people working for it, great people operating it. It is a wonderful place, but the cost of one of the unintended consequences that came with the creation of that course is that there were a couple of other courses around that they just can't compete.
Yeah.
And you can pick what level you want to talk about, right? I'm sitting here talking about 2 9-hole golf courses. Well, Sand Creek is 18. I'm talking about 2 9-hole golf courses that were enjoyable to play, probably best geared towards beginning players. And then we're talking about Sand Creek Station, which is national tournament caliber. I mean, and even in their heydays, Fox Ridge and Newton Public could not compete from a customer service perspective either. It's just being honest.
Yeah. I
mean, so there's all those levels where they couldn't compete. And right now I'm playing just different places in the area. And some of them, when they hear I'm from Newton, they're like, oh yeah, that's the course that doesn't have to pay any property tax. Man, I'd love to have that deal. I'm like, okay, I gotcha. I hear you.
But it's a public golf course.
So,
okay. This will lead into one thing I was wanting to do, Chad.
So, I told one of those folks, and they're not in Harvey County. I told one of them, I said, well, then you guys need to get serious. Incorporate yourself as a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
Stick the golf course into that ownership, and then you're not paying property tax either.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're frustrated that big tax bill is showing up on your doorstep and it's a struggle to pay it every year, and it's what's driving your increasing green fees, go nonprofit.
Well, don't. Yeah, Chad. See, here we go. And I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. If a business is in a situation where it cannot be profitable.
Well, let's look a country club. I mean, yes, it's a business, but it's just in some of these cases, it's really just a group of individuals, and most of them are volunteers.
Yeah.
Go nonprofit.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're going to make some city officials or some county officials super upset. I'll go back to this. This two-part thing. This will lead into the other thing I wanted to talk about here. That just recap what we talked about last week about voter turnout and everything.
Sure.
But, first off, elections do have consequences. I know that one thing that continuously is brought up in the situation with Newton and Harvey County, but more specifically Newton, and of course Newton is the largest city, about 60% of the population Harvey County resides within the city limits of Newton, and we have what would be considered an astronomically high nonprofit sector.
Yes, we
when
do.
I was going to school and I was looking at in my MPA, there was a professor there, and of course I've said it over and over and over again, all of my studies geared towards Newton and Harvey County. People knew me as Mr. Newton Harvey County, and I mentioned on numerous occasions we have above 30% nonprofit sector, and this specific professor, who is the chair of the department, said that's not possible. That's not possible. I think, if I remember correctly, Lawrence was really high and had a lot to do with the college and et cetera, et cetera. But 30% is ridiculous. And I challenged her, and I said, well, go look it up. If you think I'm wrong, do that and go look it up. And literally, Chad, a week later, she came back and told the entire class, I have to apologize to Mr. Gormley because he knows his community well. In fact, that is the case. That's probably the highest that I've ever heard of. I don't know right offhand how to mitigate that. And I made the comment, you have to build industry. Bring in commercial property.
Correct.
And that's the only way around that to offset that. That's the only way around it. And we all concurred that was the case, but how to do that was questionable, et cetera, et cetera. But then it just comes down to elected officials. So how do these elected officials that we put in office mitigate this or navigate through this process? Okay. And I'm not somebody who believes, I know I actually heard I gotta say it, when here recently, when running for office, one of the candidates did say, we've got to figure out how to take these people off the nonprofit dime and put it into the private. It's like, well, you obviously don't know how things work because that's just not something you profess, and then it happens. Because
Right.
ultimately, when something's incorporated and they choose to incorporate as a nonprofit and they meet the requirements of being incorporated as a nonprofit, it doesn't matter what a city or a county wants to do about it. That's their designation. There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, and
period.
And the place that has to occur is at the state level.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even the federal level, honestly, Chad.
I mean, to some extent, yes,
Yeah.
but truly, we need to be dealing with this at the state level, and folks who think like this have some friends in the state house, and those friends need to start stepping up. It's a very politically charged issue, and it's a very difficult one. And we're just gonna call some of these things for what they are, right? So we're at upwards of 30% as a county.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to pick my words very carefully here. One of the biggest drivers of that are some of our retirement homes.
Not only that, but nothing negative, but hospitals and clinics, Chad. I mean, churches.
And I don't have a problem with hospitals, clinics, or churches. And if you, you've heard me invoke Randy Haig a number of times on this program. If you go talk to Randy, he doesn't have a problem with. And then when you bring up retirement homes, he doesn't have a problem with the actual retirement home. That is what this nonprofit thing was all about. That's what that was for. It was for that core retirement home. What it's not for is so that retirement homes can do what they've been doing in North Newton and in Heston, and that's building small cities.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you look at it,
they have built a ridiculous amount of residential property.
Yeah.
And I'll be really specific. Go up to North Newton and look around. They have built a ridiculous amount of just plain old residential property. You move in, you start paying a mortgage. When you move, if you end up moving to the retirement home itself, you get something like 60% of what you paid on the mortgage.
Yeah.
The rest is supposed to be used for your health care when you are in the home.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you move into the home, the retirement home,
No longer independent living.
that's what's supposed to be tax-free.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to not be on our property tax rolls.
Yeah, and you're talking about a business model that almost every retirement community today utilizes.
And it's obviously quite lucrative.
Churches do the same thing, by the way.
And it's growing and it's growing and it's growing.
Yes.
And Randy believes, and I do too, that tax-free status was never intended for those residential homes that are getting built. That's not what it was for. That's not in the spirit of the exemption. And it is just proliferating.
Hey, it's happening everywhere.
And so it is.
I tell you this,
It
I
is.
know for a fact, and not pointing any fingers at.
Well, and I don't. I mean, I'm calling some people out. I'm not
in a negative way.
But at the end of the day, here, they are doing things that were not intended under the tax codes.
Yeah.
Not intended under the exemptions. And it is incumbent upon our state legislature, who wrote those exemptions and codes, to revisit that.
Yeah. Good luck. And I'll say this, churches are the same way. I know I'm not pointing any fingers at a Catholic church or anything, because I'm really not. But I have a priest friend that I've known for many, many, many years. He got put into a different diocese, and I went to go visit him at his parish. And all around the church, he had to drive into this area, weave through all these houses and everything else, and you get to the church. And he made the comment to me, and it kind of blew my mind, that all of that property is owned by the church. Okay? And what they do is then if you're a parishioner, you can go buy a house within that area, if you want to call it that. And then when you're done, right, then it's somehow or another, and I'm probably not saying it exactly correct in the correct manner, because you're not selling it back to the church, but all the same, ownership theoretically similar to what we're talking about with the retirement communities is the same business model that that the church is using. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the Catholic Church. It could be a Baptist church. It could be any church whatsoever that decides, hey, we're going to develop our property. We're going to allow for there to be residences on it. And therefore then, in a roundabout way, and I might be mistaken, but correct me if I'm wrong, audience. I'd like to have this discussion, if you'd like to have this discussion, that somehow or another, they're not paying property taxes.
Right.
And so what's happened is to take this for instance, when we talk about that 30%, this is more in-depth research that I did. When you talk about that 30%, we're not talking about just 30% of homeowners. Okay.
No, we're talking 30% of the total.
Yes. And I would argue that of the total pot, let's talk money, that this 30% of nonprofit sector entities within our community would be some of the largest payers when it came to if they were on the property tax. So you take something, let's say that's the value at $1.5 million. And then of this 30%, you have, let's say, $150 million worth of property that potentially could be taxed, but because they're private sector. And then the whole other 70%, now I'm just making up numbers here, people, but the whole 70% that's in the private sector only makes up about the same amount of money.
Well, let's just take the community of Walton as an example. Can we?
Go ahead. We're just talking.
Now I haven't done the research to find out what the value of an average house is in Walton.
That's pretty low.
But I'm just saying, I'm not going to, be really blunt, but I'll say I'm pretty sure that the average house in Walton is not worth $250,000.
No.
I'm guessing that value is probably a little lower than that.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know what that elementary school is worth? We found out this week. $250,000. Please understand, I am not saying that schools should be taxed. I absolutely no way in heck would I agree to taxing schools. Period. I'm just saying that when we're talking about there's 30% of our property in this county that are tax free, that building is tax free. So and I do not know what the Walton mill levy is. I didn't look it up. But you can't tell me it wouldn't be a nice shot in the arm for the community of Walton to start collecting property tax on a $250,000 property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? It's just an example. Okay? Every one of those homes that got built in North Newton is worth that or more.
Yeah. Or even the new ones out to Sand Creek Station.
While we're going down this road, what do you suppose the assessed evaluation of Bethel College might be? Don't tell me that wouldn't be a huge shot in the arm for North Newton.
Yeah. But so what you're saying is you think that colleges should be taxed, Chad.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm going to tell you point blank, you put that much new revenue on the property tax rolls of North Newton, I don't think many people would be batting an eye and looking at North Newton and saying, yeah, go start your own fire and EMS department. Because you're going to have the money. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, and I'm with you. I'm with you. Goes back to this, Chad.
And you know why we're all talking about this right now, right? Because the revenue neutral rate notices are going out. People are getting them in their mailbox, and people are getting angry.
Got mine.
You got yours. You bet.
I also got to look in a little bit more detail, and I know that I can contest it. Okay, but that my evaluation on my property did go up, similar to everybody else. Then I question it. I'm like,
the average. I mean, 12.7% is the average.
Let's just say I don't understand how it works. Okay, and I don't understand the whole thing. I'm going to come at this from a perspective of your average individual, your average citizen who's looking at it and seeing that their property value went up. I'm going to ask the question, and like I said, I know that I'm asking this deliberately as though I don't understand. Okay, well, since I moved in, I took out my entire fence. Okay, not only did I take out my entire fence, but I've done nothing to my house except for paint half of it. Okay, so I got a half painted house. I got no fence where I had a fence before and done nothing. Why is it that my property taxes are going up? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Now notice how I said that. Okay, that is where people's misunderstanding comes from. That is the average person that looks at it and doesn't understand. And I'll go this, right? I want to say this because, and not miss this before we go on. But last week we talked about how much voter turnout, percentages of overall voter turnout. We talked about how it's dismal and this and that, okay? And saying that elections have consequences, and when people go out and vote and they vote for somebody because they like them or they run the better smear campaign or whatever the case may be, you know, if you're not electing somebody that understands this kind of stuff, you're going to be in a problem.
Yes.
If you don't have this person that has a good understanding, and that's why education matters. It's, you know, I'm not getting back into my campaign and running for my campaign, Chad, but look at this. I went and I did some research over the last 20 years, and I want to throw this out here because I want to make a clip about it. And voter registration percentage turnout, or voter turnout of eligible registered voters, which we already discussed was ridiculous, going back to 2004. That's 20 years, okay? And I'm going to say every 2 years is what this is. In 2004, 22% of people turn out in the primary. 2006, 20, and going on. 25%, 28%, 23%, 27%, 32%, of course, 37%. Then we had the anomaly in 2022, which was 53%. And then in 24, we had 17%. So over the last 20 years, we had the lowest turnout this primary than ever before. Okay. And I bet you if I kept going back and back and back and back and back, that this really is one for the books. And I can't quite understand it when you take into consideration the fact that right now we've got some really, really big decisions that need to be made. People don't want their taxes to go up. People don't want for the mill levy to go up. People are mad because their appraisals are going up. And we have tons of things at the county level that we're going to have to spend our money on. So if you honestly think that your taxes are not going to go up when we have to do a $17 million improvement on a jail, or you don't think your taxes are going to go up when we've got to increase, and you think you're just going to have somebody come in here and make promises to you that you're going to cut it out of all this discretionary spending by cutting $9,000 to the Caring Hands Humane Society and $3,000 to Circle of Hope, and we're going to go squeeze blood out of a turnip when it comes to our courthouse that once again we have to remodel, which is going to cost money because of what the state legislature did. You better get it figured out, people, and you better understand that if you're not electing people to office that have an understanding of how this works, we are, in so many words, in trouble.
We are in trouble. Well, and you know, I'm going to throw something out about this particular election cycle that
Sorry for my rant, Chad.
It's okay. That I have not heard anybody else talk about. You know, we also had a presidential preference primary this year. So I'm just kind of curious as to how that may or may not have affected our local primary.
I want to ask the question whether the Kansas State Legislature actually wants people to get out and vote, because I'm starting to think they don't.
Well,
and you know, I'm not bashing the, you know, House majority and the Senate majority and all this. You know, I don't want to be ostracized in my own party, but you know, I'm kind of getting tired of party politics, to be completely honest with you.
So, and let me ask you something else. I don't know if you checked this in depth or not. Were any of those primaries in the spring?
No.
None of them?
I don't believe that's the case. The presidential preferential primary was, but I think all of them are around August.
Within the last 20 years, we had spring elections.
Then I stand corrected. What I did was I went through and researched it. I went to Harvey County, Kansas.
What I'm getting at is that I mean you're
I didn't look.
You're making statements about the legislature. What I'm getting at is this: and within the last 20 years, we did have spring elections. There was a number of election cycles. Board of Education is one of them. Those were elected in the spring. No more. State changed that one,
which, in my opinion, just causes to go down.
You look at the primary that is the unicorn, where we had 50-something%. There was a big constitutional question on that primary ballot. Who put it there?
State legislature. And I will say this.
I'm just saying.
I will say this. Anytime that you see a bump, right, when we get into this 27, 32%, and we see these increases. And I will say this, because for time and knowing that I wouldn't be able to get all of it in there, I went back through the city and school elections as well, because I wanted to throw them all in there, right? But the truth of the matter is the only time that they're increased is when there is something that's on the ballot that people can vote for. When you're not voting for candidates, but you're voting for whether or not Newton's going to have Sunday alcohol sales.
So here's another question. So I brought up, how many of these were in the spring, right? And I brought up that we had this big, huge constitutional question in 2024. I'm wondering...
2022.
Sorry, 22.
Okay,
sorry.
I was just making sure. I was going to say.
My brain.
No, you're okay.
But I'm going to ask how many of those along the way had something other than a straight list of candidates.
Well, I would say any time that there's a big bump, like the 32%, or even when you're getting up above 30%, normally that's because there's something else on the ballot that people...
Things like school bond issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
agreed. 100% agreed.
The bottom line is that what's on the ballot drives voter turnout. At least that's the assumption.
Yeah. Issue-based voters.
My esteemed colleague Nicole Babb over at the Butler County Times-Gazette has decided she wants to get to the bottom of this, because in Butler County the numbers were even worse than they were in Harvey County.
Yeah, I knew somebody over there, and I was surprised myself.
And they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
The unfortunate circumstance for Nicole is she hasn't been around all that long, and so everybody in Butler County that's been screaming about the low voter turnout is also pointing to 2022 and saying, how can it be this much different? Okay, well, that's...
Throw out the flyer.
That is throwing out, that is comparing an apple to an orange.
Yes.
Okay, because not every election is going to have the hot button issue of the last 50 years on its ballot.
Yeah.
All right. So, I encouraged her to go back and look at 2020, 2018, 2016. I'm like, you need to go back and compare to those numbers.
Yeah.
Because going back just to the last one is really not an apples to apples comparison. And pay attention to really what's on the ballot.
Well, when you're doing law of averages, you throw out the anomalies.
That's right. So she's in the process of doing that. The other thing she's in the process of doing, which I am, we have a story that announces it, and we're going to start putting out the social media links and everything else. She's doing a survey. She's asking people, why aren't you voting? Or why are you voting? She really, really, truly wants to know. She's trying to collect some data from voters about their behavior. Right? Because I'm sorry, you can't look at a 17.8 and go, oh, well, maybe I just forgot. No. Mm-mm.
Oh, there's no way voters would have forgotten this year.
It's not. Sure. It's not I forgot. It's not I couldn't get to the polling place. It's not I couldn't get to the courthouse for 2 weeks. There's more to it than that. Well, so what is it?
Yeah.
She's asking those questions.
Yeah.
Lance, I'll send you the QR code she's got. Maybe in post you can throw that up.
Okay.
So that people can scan that and go take a look.
We'll do it.
Because she's asking those questions. And yes, she's probably, if my memory is right, she's asking some really, really general basic demographics from you, right? What's your age range? Because there are some age ranges that don't vote, and it would be really nice to figure out.
I know why.
Well, we think we know why.
Well, I've done a lot of research on it when I was in school, and I'll tell you, there is something that we know. We know that people under the age of 55, more commonly under the age of 45, are issue value voters. Okay, and not only that, but they, when polled, actually believe that boycotting and boycotting whether I spend my money here or there has more of an effect on the outcome of an election or the outcome of government mandate than does my vote. That's the truth. That's the truth. Now, how do you get people to realize that when you have 17% voter turnout, that is a situation in which a very, very, very small minority of people getting out and voting are determining who is going to be on the general election ballot and therefore who's going to be your elected official, and how that does not scream disastrous consequences, or that we're being ruled by the minority because of apathy on behalf of the voter.
And you just described the very reason that Chad over here went in and re-registered his party a couple years back. Because I got really, really, really tired. I don't mean to insult anybody, but I'm just telling truth here. I got really, really, really tired of the Republican primary determining who my commissioner was going to be. And I got really, 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 really unhappy with who was coming out of there. And that there was nobody else for me in the general election. That was it. When I went in for the general election, I had two choices: vote for the person on the ballot or write in Mickey Mouse. I'm telling you, it got old. We're not in that trap this year for the most part.
I agree. There's people to vote for if you want to vote for something.
We're not in that trap this year. Okay? So if you didn't vote in the primary, so what? You didn't vote in the primary. Doggone it, go in the general. Okay? And don't give me the my vote doesn't count for president. I don't care if you think that. Your vote does count infinitesimally more when we're talking about our county commission.
Yep.
Our county treasurer, our county clerk. Rick is unopposed. Nothing against Rick. I love Rick. He's great. He's absolutely the best man for that job.
County attorney's unopposed.
County attorney is unopposed. I'm not going to share my thoughts on the county attorney right now. I'll be honest. I'm frustrated. I'm not frustrated with her because of anything that I do for the Newton Kansan. Absolutely not. I'm frustrated on other levels that people don't see behind the scenes. Okay? I'm being honest. Okay? When I as a juvenile intake worker who is serving in an on-call position, that's what that is. I am not supposed to be there from 8 to 5. I am on call. I'm there when I'm needed. And when I need a determination on a juvenile as to what we're going to do with them, I do not expect and I do not appreciate waiting for hours and hours and hours for a determination. And I get it. She's got other stuff to do. Fine. Delegate it to somebody else. Let somebody else make the decision. Have somebody call me back. I don't like that. So I have a frustration there. Okay? I've got lots of frustrations when it comes to that office. That's just one of them.
No comment. Moving on.
Moving on. But she's unopposed. Chad Gay, unopposed. Again, who cares? I mean, he's great. He's. I mean, if I were to list out my top 5 or 6 people in this county to be sheriff, he'd be right near the top of any list. So fine, great. He's unopposed. I can go in there and I can vote for him in good conscience. But those are not the only elections on the ballot. We do have contested races on the ballot. We have 2 different county commissioners that will be contested. So if one of those county commission districts is yours, get your butt to the poll and vote.
Yeah. This is a chance for independent voters to make a really big impact when it comes to these elections. If, like you said,
they have a choice.
Yes, and if people feel like they normally don't have a choice, so therefore they wouldn't go out and vote, similar to 2022. And
you know what?
We got one commissioner.
I've looked back some 30 years, and I've never found a Democrat that has actually been elected to the county commission in that time. But here's the thing, there's only been about 4 or 5 candidates in that time. That's not the case this year, guys. There's a choice on the ballot.
Yeah.
You get to make it.
Yeah.
So go make it.
Yeah. And we'll be able to see whether it actually increases voter turnout. But speaking of voter turnout.
And please don't walk in there and be like, Democrats are evil and vote. No. Don't do that.
Well, they're not pro. Well, we've already had this conversation about the fact that
don't do that.
Mark Jenkins, for instance, in my district,
I'm going to do my level best to make sure that you have some information that you can make a decision that is not based on the letter behind their name.
Yeah.
Go vote for the best person for the job, in your opinion.
Well, I'm hoping the Kansan does a forum or two.
So, well, we'll see.
I want to go here while we're on this subject. Okay, speaking of the Kansan and yesterday's paper, I have a personal relationship with somebody that is putting in articles with the Kansan, and it's
You're
Professor
talking
Middlewood.
Alexandra
Middlewood.
She writes for the Insight Kansas column series.
Okay.
There's about 5 or 6 regular authors of that. Every one of them are political science professors from around the state.
And she's the chair of the political science department for Wichita State University.
Yes.
And anyway, the article, if you get a chance, read it. Its headline is "Overturn Voting Law: A Victory for Voter Registration Drives and Democracy." And I'll tell you, Chad, when the legislature passed a law that said that it would be a felony, right, for somebody to pose as an election official to be able to have or register individuals, and the way that was worded, even from me, made me say, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go out and try to register too many people. And there's a reason why, is because my question with this law is this. You know, if I go and I show up to your doorstep and I'm trying to register you to vote, and the perception of the individual that I'm trying to get registered to vote might be that somehow or another I'm an election official, okay, then quite potentially, I might be viewed as committing a crime. Not only a crime, a felony, okay? And then, well, we all know that you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, and that even though you get arrested or you get charged because somebody makes a complaint that you've done something similar to that, which then follows the felony, right? And then it's up to the prosecution whether or not they charge or they believe there's enough evidence to charge. And that threshold is very minor. So then it goes before a judge. And before you know it, you're in all kinds of legal problems because all you wanted to do was go out and get people registered to vote. And if you don't think it can happen, it can happen, okay? So the best thing to do is don't go register anybody. If you want to be able to stay completely out of the situation where you might, and what you might be doing is misconstrued by your average person, regardless of what their intelligence threshold might be. Okay? Let's just talk about that. It's similar to Facebook, okay? Not everybody that's posting on Facebook is really who they say they are. You're getting whatever they want to project to you that they might be. I could put on there that I'm a professor of political science from the University of whatever. That's not illegal. Under a fake name, and go out here and speak as though I have some kind of authority, when in all reality, I'm just somebody that's slightly above it. And that might make some people mad that I say that I would talk about somebody like that I would say something, but we have to start having plain truth. Anyway, this article goes on to say that it was struck down. Okay, so now what we've come to understand is that although the legislature did make that a law, that it's no longer a law. So feel free to go out and register people to vote. As simple as that might sound. Don't go telling people that you're a public official.
But candidates can now take a page out of the Tim Hodge playbook again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Go register people to vote. You know how many people will vote because you were the first person to register them to vote because you took the time to stop by their house and tell them how important it was that they get out to vote. And because the way candidates normally run are, well, I'm going to get this list of people and this only list of people that votes, and I'm going to go out and I'm just going to go to this list of people that vote because that way I'm going to win. I'm going to get these people out to vote. And the reality of it is that is not synonymous with understanding that there are so many people that this decision is being made without their approval, without their participation, without their input in the form of a vote. And you would be amazed, Chad, at how many people I've registered to vote over this amount of time who just didn't understand. I was there to make the case to them that whether they voted for me or not, that they should go out and vote.
Tim Hodge was so successful, it got him elected. And it got people within the Republican Party asking why they lose the mail vote all the time. The simple answer, and honestly, I didn't check it this year or in this election, but this was a partisan election. The Republican candidates take a frickin' bath on the mail vote in Harvey County all still, and it's because of Tim Hodge. He ran the ground game.
Yeah.
What he did was he would go and he would knock on a prospective voter's door. He didn't know if they were registered or not. He didn't know if they were a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a libertarian or a Whig or what they were. All he knew was that there was somebody behind that door who was over the age of 18, which means they're eligible to vote. And he would knock on that door and he would say, I want to introduce myself. My name is Tim Hodge. I'm running for state representative. I would just want to know, are you registered to vote? Have you ever voted by mail? Are you interested in voting by mail? Voting by mail is ridiculously easy. All you have to do is fill this form out. They will send you a ballot. He didn't give you an opportunity to say a word. And then when he would take a breath, that's when someone would say, well, no, I've never voted by mail. Is it really that easy?
Yep.
Let's sign you up. And he'd stand on that front porch with you and he would help you fill out that form.
Just sign here.
He would look right at you and he would say, I think we've got every one of these, right? We've got every one of these. Everything's there. You'll want to check that they've got your name spelled right when they send you your confirmation. By the way, you need to sign it at the bottom.
I've done the same thing.
I'll drop it off at the clerk's office.
I've done the same thing.
And
I believe in people getting the right to vote. And if you've got to make it to where they send you a ballot, then send you a ballot in the mail and vote.
I wasn't registered in mail as a mail voter at the time. I was registered as a voter. And he got me to do it by mail. And he was like, I'll just drop this off at the clerk's office for you tomorrow, Chad. And I'm like, great. So what did all that do? He got people registered. Now,
and whether they're paying attention or not,
here's my message.
You get a ballot in the mail.
Here's my message to the decision makers in the Republican Party of Harvey County. The other thing it did is when those persons either got their ballot in the mail or they went to the polling place on election day or during early voting and they got their ballot, they would see that name and be like, hey, that's the guy who helped me sign up for this.
There you go. He cares about my vote.
That's why you guys lose.
Yeah. Oh, we're making some people mad today, Chad.
You're winning the war. But that is a battle that you guys have completely lost.
Oh, and I got news. I've got news.
Straight up.
Yeah. Today you're winning the war. Today.
Cry me a river that you can't seem to make any inroads with early voters, and you can't make any inroads with expanding your registrations. I mean, truly. Yeah. Not getting defections because they're tired of not having people to vote for. And cry me a river that you consistently lose the mail war. You're not even fighting it.
Correct.
I mean, you did.
Yeah.
But by and large, you're not even fighting it.
Yeah.
And Tim was so good at it Now, you'll note I'm not making a single statement about Tim and policy, how he operated on Capitol Hill. This area, he was so good.
Yeah.
I truly believe he was so good at that it led to, during redistricting, Newton and North Newton being split into two different districts, which was a Republican wet dream for decades.
Gerrymandering is what it's called.
That's exactly what it's called.
Yeah. But people don't see this. They're not informed. They're not there. Yes,
they split that Democratic voting bloc. Okay? To the victors go the spoils. And that's one of them. But I truly believe that his success in that area is what led to that, ultimately.
Yeah.
But
well, now that it's not a felony, okay?
Now you can do it again.
Now you can go do it again. So don't worry, people. You're not going to get criminalized because you want to go out and get people registered to vote. And I'm a firm believer that I'd rather somebody be sent a mail-in ballot and then vote than this concept that we should only have voting on one day and we should have no early voting and you should only be able to go to the polls from 7 to 7 and use a paper ballot and a number 2 pencil. Moving on. Did you get to go to the fair? Did you do any of the fair, the parade, the demolition derby, anything?
I went to the parade. I watched a woman get her toes driven over by a parade float.
Uh-oh.
I listened to a police officer who was very cranky as a result. I get it. And honestly, I'm with him on that one. I mean, he's like, this is why we can't have nice things. You know, we got people down on the block there that are driving around the barricades because they think they absolutely have to use First Street to get to Casey's right now. And then we got this woman who was out in the middle of the street where she didn't belong. She got her foot driven over by a float. I don't know what's going to happen to her. I don't know if we have to take her to the emergency. I'm like, yeah, I got you, man. Right? But we had a fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Split over 2 weeks.
And yes, and it was split over 2 weeks. I have lots of mixed emotions about that split over the course of 2 weeks. Yeah. Lots of mixed emotions.
Well, it's my hope.
But it happened.
Yeah.
And the fair happened. And now
my resolution was this. Of course, I'm a big spender. I honestly believe with the Fair Board expressed, which was that they're having more and more difficulty when it comes to getting a carnival.
Yes.
That's why it got split in the first place, was because it's very hard to find a carnival. We're in competition with other communities that do better business than we do. So basically you have an option, and then your options are limited because, well, you know, we don't make the carnival as much money as
the carnival does not make the big bucks when it shows up here.
And there was and they estimated that it generates about $6,000 in revenue. Okay. And so my suggestion is there any way that the county can appropriate $6,000 more to the fair? So that way we can have them in conjunction with one another, the 4-H, without that being consideration. Hopefully next year it'll just all be on the same weekend again, and they'll find other options going forward to try to fill that void. Whether that happens or not, I mean, crucify me if you want to, because I'm talking about the fact that we should be appropriating the finances that the Fair Board would be losing based on that. But the truth of the matter is we're probably not going to have a carnival in the next 5 years anyway.
Most likely.
We're just not. Kind of like the demo derby.
Yes. There's some things that are, we'll call them ticking time bombs when it comes to the fair. Carnival is one of them. There are fewer and fewer providers out there every year. Okay? And you know, earlier this year we had up on Old 81.
I can tell you exactly who that is. I know who lives there.
That was all storage.
Yep.
Nobody bought nothing. Somebody's boss asked them to store it for them.
Central location, right off a highway.
You know, would it have been nice that a carnival provider was moving in out there? Yeah, because, hey, man, you want this rezoning? We've got a county fair and need your help.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like strong-arming people, and I think it's wrong to do it.
It's a negotiation,
but for crying out loud.
And you hope that both people win.
But, you know, and I haven't said hardly anything political about this whole thing. But I am going to say this. If the county were, and I don't think there's I don't see any way that the county will become the funder of the fair. I just don't see it happening. But if they wanted to explore that, and again, I am not speaking ill of anyone. I am speaking ill of how things are being done. They want that. We need to go back to an elected fair board. We no longer have that. We did it one time. They had troubles filling all of the members of the board during that.
Imagine that. With all the praise and the pats on the back and everything that everybody gets for signing up, serving their community. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that
Knock
job,
off the
Chad?
sarcasm,
I mean, hey,
dude.
because for some reason people think
It's-
you're winning something and you're not winning anything.
Those folks are some of the most thankless people. Mm-hmm. They do not receive
each and every one of them.
Credit.
Know their hearts. Know who they are.
Zero and zip.
Yeah.
And you know what? This entire community was really fast to sling arrows at them.
Oh, yeah.
Things weren't going the way they wanted it to.
All 25 people that showed up and just had the most
not just
anger
them.
that
It
they
wasn't
could
just-
possibly have at these people.
It wasn't just them. There was a lot of people taking shots at them. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I refrained. I did my absolute best to refrain. And I am not taking a shot at them by saying, if the county is going to become the primary funder, then we need to have a board that reflects that. Okay?
Accountability and funding works for me.
Well, I mean, it's a private association now.
Yeah.
And unless you want to view it the same way you view health ministries and some of those other nonprofits that the county just gives money to.
Well, look out, because they're all on the chopping block, Chad.
Right. Well, I know that.
Just wait till the
I
small
know
group of
that.
people that show up at the budget hearings that have been enticed to show up by one commissioner or two people in particular.
Oh, let's talk budget hearings.
To be able to speak out against it. Speak out against
Let's
all
talk-
this wasted money and spending that you have.
So let's talk budget hearings because nobody understands that whole process. Mm-hmm. Right? And everybody should have received or is receiving in a day or two their notice of revenue neutral rate hearings. Understand what you're receiving and understand why you're getting it. And the reason I bring this up is some of this stuff started popping into Facebook last night.
Oh yeah, they've got their plants.
They've
got their plants. Why does Caring Hands Humane Society get $9,000 from the county? I don't understand it. It's just so much wasteful spending, right, Chad?
Do you have any idea what we'd be spending if we didn't have Caring Hands?
Oh, well, let's say what the alternative is.
Well, we can shut it down, then all our dogs can be taken to Wichita, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, and put down?
That's exactly what'll happen to them.
Hey, you know what? I mean, if there's somebody that wants to donate some money, but I just don't think come on, it's getting ridiculous. You're going to start seeing it on social media.
Yes.
There's a little group of people that are going to come out here and plant these little seeds and talk about how, this, that, and the other is wasteful spending,
Right.
and they don't even know what they're talking about. So just remember that.
So when
Consider the source, people.
When you receive that notice tells you really only one thing. It tells you that the organizations listed are going to be spending more money next year than they spent last year. That's all it tells you. Okay? And it might even give you an idea by percentage how much more you're going to be paying on your taxes this next year. Might do that too. I haven't read mine yet. I figure I don't need to read it because I'm at the meetings where they set these revenue neutral rate hearings. I know when they are, and I know what went into it. So I don't read the notice. Sorry. What it doesn't tell you is what's gone on with their mill levies. Sorry, it does not tell you that. Because it's not designed to do that. It is designed to tell you that, for example, the city is going to spend more money next year than they spent this year. That's what it tells you. That, and my biggest frustration with every city finance director, city clerk, county finance director, county administrator, Every single one of them, up and down the line, do not explain this in terms that people can understand. And why is that? The reason is that everybody spends all their time looking at the wrong number, because the very first thing when they bring out the budgets, they'll bring out the budget, and then they will tell you that the county evaluations on average went up 12.7% this year. It's the next words out of their mouth that just drive me bat crazy.
But the mill levy's going to stay.
This is how it's going to affect the mill levy. In order to raise this amount of money, we need to set our mill levy here. Okay. We're not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is, will you spend more money next year than you did last year? That's what triggers a revenue neutral rate hearing. The mill levy is not a part of a revenue neutral rate hearing. It really isn't, no matter how much everybody wants to force it to be.
Yeah.
And I got the receipts on this.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back. Okay. This will lead into this, and we are coming to the end of the program. Okay. This comes back to education, because the truth of the matter is I'm a firm believer that there is a lack, whether by design or not by design, of civic education when it comes to our pre through K system, K through 12 system. Okay. And I'm a firm believer that, in my opinion, this is something that should be taught. Okay. Because you have X amount. I mean, every last one of these people that are in school are tax-paying citizens. Every time they go get gas, every time they go get, especially when they're in the high school age, every single dollar they spend on anything costs taxes. That cost them money. They go work.
Sales tax.
Taxes taken out of their paycheck.
Income tax.
All of this stuff. And so then it's like, how do we not have this lesson learned? What is this not important? So knowing that all of these people are potential homeowners in the future, that they have buying power, that they need to understand how the tax system works, that they need to understand the importance of how much money comes out of their taxes. All of these things might encourage these youth to pay more attention to the electoral process, because that's where it matters, right? We have all of these things that happen. I mean, the reason why, and I know this to be the case, the reason why people who are 65 and older vote at sometimes 70 and 80% margins versus younger people that don't has to do with the fact that much of their life from 65 plus is affected by government policy in the form of their retirement, in the form of their Medicare, in the form of their Social Security, in the form of how much they can work and make before it affects X, Y, or Z, when they get to retire. All of these things, their medications, how much they're going to pay on medication, how much reimbursement they're going to get for it, how they put money into the taxes. All of these things, okay, are affect their life greatly. So if you had a younger generation that was awake, we talk about woke, was awake to the fact that the government is very, very intricately involved in their life, then maybe they would be more inclined to go out and vote. And I'm not sure whether by design or not by design, but it needs to be something that's taught. Every youth coming out of high school needs to have an understanding of taxes, where their taxes go. You see that park over there? That's everybody's taxes paying for that. You see this road out here in front? That's paying for through taxes. The water coming to your house and leaving your house. When you flush the toilet, that's municipal entities that have regulation over that. When somebody comes to your house to pick up your trash, I'm going on a rant, Chad, and I'll give you the last word. But do you want me to do the last word first? Or do you got a last word? Because I got something I want to say about everybody going back to school.
I don't want to hear about the mill levy anymore.
Fair enough.
And I
interrupted your thought, didn't I, Chad?
Nope,
I'm sorry.
I brought the receipts on this. Okay? Yes, your tax bill's going up. There's absolutely no question that your tax bill is going to go up. But I want you to listen to what I'm going to say right now very carefully. The city set its maximum mill rate at 71.361 mils. That is a reduction of the mill levy by 1 full mil. Last year it was 72.361. Your city tax bill is going up. It's not the mill levy. USD 373 just set their max mill levy, 51.695. That is a reduction of 1.5 mils. Last year, it was 53.231. Your tax bill's going up. It's not the mill levy. The Rec Commission just said its as well, 8.78 mils. That's a reduction of 0.12 mils. That is, last year was 8.901. That's 3 straight mill levies that went down.
But you're still paying
more your taxes. Tax bill is going up. It's time to stop talking about mill levy.
Yeah.
You want to take the county to task, go ahead. They're going up 3 mils. Okay? So the total last year from those entities was 177.086. The total this year, right now, and that's if there's no reductions made between now and the hearings, and they can do it, 179.429. Your tax bill is probably going up somewhere around 10 to 12%. Your mill levy went up about 1%. It's not the mill levy. It's time to quit talking mill levy. It's about total budget size, and it is about the inflation of your property tax evaluation. Your house is worth more money. And why is your house worth more money? When your neighbor down the street puts it on the market and 5 hours later it's gone and somebody paid more than they asked for it, your values are going up.
And that comes into consideration building materials and what it takes to cost to build a new house.
Pure capitalism at
work. What it takes to bring wood to the... I mean, this goes back to education. Goes back to education. Firm believer that it goes back. You should not have to have a master's in public administration or economics to understand this type of thing. You really shouldn't.
And
it should be something that's taught.
So now, that's kind of my mic drop moment.
Okay.
So here's my final thought. I made mention of how I'm working with the Butler County Times-Gazette. I'm also working with the McPherson Sentinel right now on something that's super cool, and I want to see every single one of you in my office. We're doing a drive for Heart to Heart. We're looking for snack food, copy paper, fidget spinners, or fidget toys, coloring books, bottled water, all the kinds of things that they want to put in bags for kids when the kids are headed to court. And in case you don't know, Heart to Heart, they do interviews with kids who have been abused. Those are the kids that we're talking about supporting here. We're collecting all that stuff in our office. They're also Faith and Life bookstore downtown has graciously agreed to be a collection point for us. And I would love to be able to take a whole bunch of stuff over to Heart on the 31st. So you got a couple weeks. So come see me or go see Bethany. You don't have to give much. I mean, just go into Dollar Tree and buy a coloring book.
If everybody gives a little, it's a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
So come see me because I'm serious. I would love to see this be a big thing. I know it's not going to be. It's just the nature of life. We're just one more group that's out there trying. Yeah. Right? But this is the group that we decided to try and support.
Yeah. Well, my final word is subscribe to the Kansan, folks. It's $5 online subscription. You get 12 papers. And if you had done that, or you choose to do that, you can go back through and you can look at one of the most recent articles in last Tuesday's paper. How much is too much? Some Kansas school districts are cutting back on screen time. I will say this. In full disclosure, a lot of the reasons why this is the case is budgetary reasons. Wichita's school system is one of the largest, if not the largest, in the state of Kansas. And their main reason why they're mentioning it is because they used a lot of money for devices during COVID pandemic that was COVID funding to be able to transition kids out of in-person learning to online learning. And they don't have the money to replace these things. So there's also some other information in there that talks about how damaging it really is on the youth of our nation. And the only people that can take control of that as a whole is you with your own children. And it's limit the screen time, folks. Limit the screen time. We literally are raising a generation of children, and that is all they do. It's all they do. And children learn what they live. And there's a lot of adults that could take a break on the screen time and just focus on your kids for a minute. Take them outside. Take them to the park. Limit the screen time. Otherwise, it'll be the death of us.
I'll loan you a couple fishing poles, man.
Go golfing.
That too.
All right, everybody. Sorry I went a little late today, but we hope to have a good week. Get your kiddos back to school. Enjoy the transition of this time and love on your family because they're the ones that are most important. Have a good week, everybody.